I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Crooked Creek Art League says, I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm glad the travel was not as arid as it was at our last meeting, because that was rough. I want to congratulate all the winners for the show. I'm super excited that so many of our new members were honored as winners. So, so that's really cool. So, that's a blessing, and it shows we're moving in the right direction, getting good people in too. So, anything else? All right. Any new members that are here or whatever, and you have not received a new member packet?
I got on.
Yeah.
I think we get there at 9:30.
And then, I think the volunteers.
Just be there at 9:30, right?
9:30,
Yeah, so we're excited to have that.
no, the paintings are, he asked if the paintings are brought in before, we bring them in, it starts at 9:30, we bring them in. And that starts at 10. Okay.
We'll get it done. And as I say, if you volunteered, if you're one of the ones who signed up on that, try to get there at 9:30 so we'll be totally organized. And I'll promise you, Bobby will have us right there, right, Diane? So we'll know where we're supposed to be and who's got what job, and we'll roll from there. Barbara, community art projects and nomination committee.
Okay. Couple things. We will be installing the newest piece. We'll be installing the newest piece to the Chapin Art Trail on Tuesday, November 20th. We'll be installing next weekend. Feedback over there.
Yeah, sorry.
We'll be installing it next weekend. We'll be doing a dedication ceremony, which is open to the public and free of charge, noon on Tuesday, April 25th. And we hope some of you will be able to be there to join us to help celebrate the new piece. It's a piece by Olga. It's a real tall obelisk. Can't wait for y'all to see it because it's just gorgeous. So I have a copy of the agenda, but if anybody's curious about that, but I brought 10 copies, not enough for everybody, but just if you're really interested, the press release we're doing, it talks about what it is, when it is, and so forth. So we can pass those, whoever wants one to take it. There's not enough for everybody, so if you don't really care, don't keep it. So again, I hope that y'all will come. Everybody is welcome, and we know that a number of our sponsors and funders and so forth are planning to be at the dedication ceremony. It'd be nice to have a good showing from the league as well. It's going to be right in the center of downtown. It's on the property of Spring Hill Construction, which is on the corner of Chapin Avenue and Virginia Avenue. If you all know where the Walgreens or CVS, I can't remember. There's a drugstore, there's Spring Hill Construction, and then there's a thrift store across the street. It's in the middle of that triangle. So that's where it is, noon on the 25th. If you have any questions about it, please let me know. That will be the newest addition to the Chapin Arts Trail, and it will really kind of be the official formal kickoff for the trail itself. All of the other pieces of art that are already all around town will have signs that look rather like this, that will be posted with that artwork. And it tells, it says it's the Chapin Art Trail, that it's a project of the town and the Art League. It tells what the artwork title is, who the artist was, a little bit about the artwork. And then there's a code on the bottom, and every single sign has a different code. So if you want to have fun, take your kids, your grands, your whatever, go around and do the visits to all the spots on the trail. If you scan the code, it'll take you to a web page that tells you a lot more about this artist, this artwork, and the history of that particular piece. And it'll give you a clue. And if you get all the clues, you solve the puzzle, then you have solved the scavenger hunt. And once a quarter, we will do a drawing from everybody who turns in a completed form, and they will get prizes. And all of this is paid for by a grant that we were fortunate enough to be able to get this year. So we're really excited about that. So all of that's coming and rolling out as well. If you're curious about the scavenger hunt or the artwork or anything at all on the trail, please let me know. We do have another piece of art that we're working on, that we're aiming for the September timeframe. That's the mural you all probably heard me mention before. We're still moving forward with that. It's just going a little bit more slowly, getting all the I's dotted and the T's crossed to get all of that squared away. But we're targeting Labor Day for that to roll out the ad. So all of that is good news. Is there any questions about any of that?
Is it to be at Cathy's place?
Is what?
To be at the new Cathy store.
You know where Miss Cathy's is right now?
Yeah.
It's the side wall of that building, the side that faces the parking lot.
Yeah.
That whole wall, which is a huge wall, is going to be the mural.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And the town of Chapin did get a grant to help pay for it. The mayor, I saw him and he said they received a grant to help fund it.
They won multiple things related to the whole Chapin art community effort.
You might want to repeat what she said for people on Zoom. Couldn't
Okay.
hear her.
So a couple of things. What Ruby mentioned was that the town has gotten a grant that will help offset them paying for. The town and the chamber are going together to jointly fund the mural. It is not paid for out of the grant. It's an additional project that they got inspired to take on because of all of the things that we've been doing. And the town and the chamber had committed to do all of that. And then they also applied for and got some additional funding to help them offset the expense of that, which is all wonderful things. The other thing, which I think I mentioned last month, is that the town had applied for and won on the statewide level the Municipal Association's award for the best community improvement project because of the art project that they've been working with for the last couple of years with us, and putting community artwork out all over the place. So very positive things, very, very positive things. And we're excited about all of that stuff. Okay, thank you. Good point. Any other questions on that issue? Okay, nominations committee. The way that it works in the league, in the month of April, we put forward a slate of officers that has been proposed by the nominations committee for the coming year, next year. And we review it tonight. We open the floor for additional nominations from the floor tonight, and then it all goes on the shelf for a month. And when we come back in May, we offer one last chance for nominations from the floor, and then we as a body vote to formally elect our officers for next year. Okay, so those of you who are new, that's the way all that works. So tonight, I'm just going to read you the list of nominations that have been put forth by the nomination committee for the slate of officers for next year. And if you are one of these people, please stand up so people can put a face with a name. Okay, so for president next year, Yvonne Byers. Yes. All right. For vice president next year, Lainey McWilliams. Secretary next year, Shirley Britton. Treasurer next year, Stephanie Arnold. Parliamentarian next year is normally the person who's our immediately past president, so Kay Fox. Webmaster, me. A long slate of chairs that are also part of the board. Those are not formal officer positions, so we don't have to go through all of those. I will tell you, unless you want me to read them all. No. Okay. Yeah, but I will tell you that we have a couple spots that we thought we had filled, that there's become issues that have arisen, so we're looking for 2 more volunteers for positions. And I have a request for a volunteer that's not on this list also. So we need somebody, we're trying to do co-chairs on most of these jobs, just help spread the wealth, get more people involved, and to make the workload on any one person a little less. So we have one person for the public gallery coordinator position. That's the person who manages the list of who's asked to be represented in public galleries and all of our public galleries, and assigns the slots and follows up with the gallery owners as needed and stuff. It's mostly an email job. It's not terrible. We have one person for that right now, and we're looking for a second person to partner with that person. The person we had is not going to be able to do it. So if you are interested in learning a little bit more about our public galleries, getting a little more involved in that, it's a pretty easy break into the process of working with some of this stuff. Because like I say, it's mostly a watch the list and send some emails kind of a job. So any volunteers right off? Okay, I'll find you then. All right. And then the other one is the library show in next year, the one that's coming up in a couple weeks in May. We do that each year, and we need one person. Sorry, twice. Yes, we do that show twice a year. It's a small show. It's not a juried show. It's a fairly straightforward one. We take the entries. We have one People's Choice Award that's selected by votes. So you have to tell people that it's coming up. You have to tell people they've been accepted into the show. You have to tell people who the People's Choice was. It's not terrible. It's our smallest show in terms of management requirements. We have one person who is signed up for that. The other person who was going to do it is not going to be able to now. So we're looking for a second person to help coordinate that show. You want to do that one, Cathy? Oh, fabulous. Fabulous. Thank you. We love volunteers. Okay. And then not formally on this list, but related to the community arts, the Chapin Arts Trail, one of the things that the grant provided for was to us to give awards, like I said, on a quarterly basis to the people who completed the scavenger hunt. We'll do a random drawing and give them a prize. I have some money to pay for prizes. I hate shopping. One of y'all must like shopping. Anybody want to volunteer to help go buy some prizes for that? Shopping. Shopping. Yeah. Come on. Carol, you'll help, Carol? You're hired. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay. I forgot, like I always like to, if you have any guests here tonight, if you could stand, I would appreciate it. Both of you. Come on. I know there's more than just, there's more than these two now. All right, introduce yourself.
Big way, I'm here with Stevie.
Charlotte Slade, same.
Okay. Y'all do any art? Y'all interested in
I'm
art?
a service designer, but I live in Greenville.
We
I
got
would
Zoom,
love to.
but we
join
got
this.
Zoom.
Well, I hate Zoom.
Sometimes we do.
Yeah.
Somebody else, I know there was one other person I saw a while ago that was a guest. Thank you.
I'm Katie Wilson.
Awesome. Well, we welcome everybody, our guests and our members too, and you know, our new members especially. I'm going to now turn this over to our Vice President, Deb Kelly, and let her do the last things that need to happen before we close.
I always struggle with this, it's short. I just wanted to remind everybody about the annual show that's coming up in May. The prospectus is online. Registration is required online. And keep in mind that the pieces that you enter in the show, just because they're in the show does not prevent them from being entered in another show. So that's one of the exceptions that we have for that particular show. Please think about it, register online. It's very easy, I promise. And then you will bring them to the May meeting on May 15th. And bring an easel with them. And we're going to display them in here. And then we do have first through third place ribbons for that show. And you are voted on by your peers. So it will be a fun show and you'll get a chance to see what everybody's working on. So just keep that in mind and do remember to register. Now, with that said, I want to get our speaker up here. And let me introduce our speaker. I wanted to welcome Gretchen Parker. She has done a Zoom meeting for us before. And we're pleased to have her here in person. Is a retired pediatric hypnotherapist, occupational therapist, and art is her second career. She uses the medium of colored pencil, and if you've ever seen any of her work, you know she has achieved great detail and realism in all of her paintings. They're just absolutely beautiful, and you're going to see some of those tonight. Her work has won many awards and honors, including signature status in the Colored Pencil Society of America, and she's also a jury member of the International Guild of Realism. She's written extensively in colored pencil artwork. She authored Volume 3 and Colored Pencil Surfaces series, Colored Pencil and Drafting Scale, which can be found on Amazon.com. Her work has been featured in several publications locally, nationally, and internationally, and it has been hung in galleries both locally and in San Francisco. She has taught classes here in South Carolina and around the U.S., as well as on Zoom. And she also offers monthly classes in her home for both newbies and experienced colored pencil artists. So I want to introduce Gretchen, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Gretchen.
You want me here or there? Where do you want me, here or there?
Depending on what you're going to do.
So you're fine.
Is this fine?
Mhm.
Okay. So thank you all for having me tonight. Most of you probably don't know I've been a member of Crooked Creek Art League for this whole century. I just don't come to meetings. But I love you all. I kind of scattershot when I speak. This is, I think, the third or fourth time I've spoken to this group. I'm not sure how this is going to work. Can I use my iPad to scroll through, or are you going to scroll?
I'm going to scroll through. I had to set them up on here. I couldn't get it. It was
You
trying
know
to.
why? I had it in airplane mode.
It's all
I
good.
just figured it out.
Use the microphone.
Well, that would probably work better so I can move around and see what's on this screen too. Oh, it's long enough. It'll work.
Can we move this over?
You need.
So this is my dirty little secret on the screen. These are all the pencils that I currently own, but there's a whole bunch more hidden in my studio that my husband doesn't know about. Some of these I've won. Some of them I don't like. Some of them I do.
Gretchen.
My voice will probably end up giving out. And then when that happens, my eyes run and I sneeze and then I'm fine. So. What can I say? I live in a very interesting body. Okay, let's go to the next
Just
one.
act like it's an ice cream cone.
Yeah. So I'm kind of just go through the sequence of how I started with colored pencil. And this is on Stonehenge paper. This is my dear friend Katie. She's a screwball.
She looks delightful.
She is, and you never know what's going to come out of her mouth. She was, her husband was in the military, so she's a military wife, and she's lived all over the world, and even sailed on a battleship with her first child to get to Japan to join her husband after they'd been married. She raised 6 kids, so she's something else. This is on Stonehenge, and for years I worked on Stonehenge. I almost brought one of my very first drawings from 1977, but then I decided you didn't need to see it. I'm sure you get the picture, because we've all been there. And this is Mr. Tom, this is her husband, and he was just a delightful fellow. We lost him a few years back, and he's buried in the military cemetery at Fort Jackson. So I couldn't bring Katie without bringing Mr. Tom. This has been a really popular one, and this is another case where I just was in the right place at the right time. My camera happened to be laying on my lap as we were crossing the dam. The interesting thing is, I didn't get enough pictures of the tower, so one day my husband took me over to the dam and we drove back and forth across the dam to get pictures of the tower. And then the president was SCE&G then, maybe it was vice president, he was up there somewhere, bought a copy of this to hang in his office, and he looked at it and said, those towers aren't in the right place. I said, you're right, they're not. I moved them. So this one here has won some really prestigious awards, and the reason that I did it was I wanted to see if I could draw cellophane. And I learned about an electric eraser, which I don't really like, but I did use it with this in an eraser shield to erase out the color. All of these are done on Stonehenge paper. It's a 100% cotton rag print paper. It's recently been bought by Legion Paper Company, and it's kind of changed a little bit. I don't work on Stonehenge a lot anymore unless I get a client that asks me for it. So I'm not going to do a demo on that. This is my next step up. This one helped me win my signature award in the Explore This online exhibition with the Colored Pencil Society in America. And the reason that I entered it in that show is because I used 2 different mediums. And I used my Icarus board to put this part of the sidewalk in. That is not pencil, it's wax crayon. And I melted it and spread it to get the texture. And another reason that I did it, my art mentor, Ann Kuhlberg, some of you may have heard of her. She has, she publishes a magazine and has since the turn of this century, actually last century. I happened to pick up her book at Phoenix Graphics when there was still Phoenix Graphics.
and got in contact with her, found out she was gonna be teaching in Raleigh, and so I went up to Raleigh and took a class from her, and she told me at the time she didn't think I could do that, so then I had to. So that one's gonna be in New Mexico this summer for the, yes.
That is you in the picture, right?
Yeah,
You
and
just got that.
yeah, that's me. See? See? And then right here, if you look real close, is Roy taking the picture. Roy's my husband. He's standing on the desk in the reflection. So we're both in that picture. But anyway, that one's going to New Mexico for the International Guild of Realism this summer. I'm really excited about that one. I'm hoping somebody will buy it. So, because I'm running out of room. And it's big, it's big. This is Michelle McNitch's fault. She told me that I couldn't mix watercolor pencil or watercolor with colored pencil. So again, I had to do it. That's my father-in-law, Mr. Parker, and our 50-year-old son, Evan. Evan's shirt is watercolor. Mr. Parker's overalls are watercolor with pencil enhancements. And I'm going to talk some more about that after we go through these. This is Robin from the zoo. I don't know how many of you remember Robin. She died 3 years ago. She was 50 years old. So when she died, I donated this one to their silent auction to help raise some funds in memory of Robin. And this is watercolor on all these first ones that you see are on Stonehenge. This one is on 150 Arches cold press paper, and I used that paper because of all the texture that I wanted to get in the elephant and in the background. So the elephant is all watercolor, the background's all watercolor, and then all of it is enhanced with pencil. This one is another watercolor portrait of my great niece and nephews. The one in the brown and white shirt has a little baby boy now, so you know how old this is. He's really cute. And this is a case, again, where I use watercolor, especially in the leaves, and then you'll see it better in the next slide. I allowed it to bloom, so it's a wet and wet technique, and then I just went in, this one here. I went in after it dried and then picked out the azaleas. When I got, this was a commission, and when the grandmother gave it to me, I thought, Lordy, Lordy, how am I ever going to render all those azaleas? But it turned out to be really easy. I just let it bloom and then drew the details of the flowers in. That's one. Yeah. Now, then I graduated to wood, and I've got one on wood here. This one here on the screen has a really funny story. So here's a well-known colored pencil artist from New York. And I've done this several times. This is a lesson that I've taught. This is actually on a piece of plywood. Arlene emailed me and she said, the green on your table is going the wrong way. It doesn't look right. And I said, well, you can't change it because this is wood and that's what it looks like. So I started working on wood, and then this one was the next one that I did on wood. We took, some of you may know my daughter, Rachel Parker. She's a watercolor artist and quite well known on the internet. She and I went to breakfast at, what's that kitchen place over on Bush River Road? No, the one with all the rocking chairs out front.
Okay.
Thank you. This was at Cracker Barrel, and our waitress recognized us, so this is what she brought to the table. The first one, and then the second one was after I was done with it. So this one's on wood too, and the grade's going the right way now. So
No, I was trying to get that up for people, but I'm having
if
trouble.
we lose it.
Yeah, no, we didn't lose the thing. I
Oh,
was
okay.
trying to show them the picture
Oh,
online,
you want
but
me to bring it back?
I can't get it.
No?
I'm trying to share my screen.
I think
so
it's on my website. Gretchen
Well,
Evans
I'll
Parker.
show it to him when the presentation's finished.
Okay.
We'll look at all the stuff.
Okay, so then, after I started on wood, I had a gourd wash up on our beach, on the lake. And, my brother-in-law grew a gourd. Let's see. It's about, no, it's about that big, about that big around. And, his famous line when he gave me that gourd was, "Those gourds grew so fast they drug themselves to death." He was a character. He was really a character. So once I started working on wood, then I went to gourds. And I didn't know how to do it. So this gourd that washed up on the lake, I threw it in the garage and let it dry out really well for a couple of years. And if you can go to the next slide, that'd be good.
It's
Oh.
not the gourds. Are
That's
they?
all right. Just stay with that one for
Okay.
just a minute. I was talking off the top of my head while she got things.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. That's okay. This is Ella. This is my youngest granddaughter. And that's in combination with whole leaf, which I thought was really interesting. It was a neat experience. It's from a class that I took, and that's why I threw it in. And yes, her eyes are that brown. Okay, here's another one on wood. We did some remodeling in our house, and we had some plywood left over. And I ran into a lady on the internet whose husband was a carpenter, and she said that she had all the birch panel that she needed. She's in New Mexico, I believe. I can't remember her name. I think it's Regina. Anyway, so that was an experiment. My husband grows roses, which, by the way, I'm going to put in a shameless plug for my husband's roses. They're starting to bloom. If any of you would like rose references, please get in contact with me. He would love to have you come see his gardens out on the lake. He's got about 80 bushes. He's planting more. They're gorgeous. He drives me nuts. Because he drags all the rose dirt into the house and I get to clean it up. But that's neither here nor there. Keeps me busy. Yeah. Some of them are just incredible. They're just, he's always looking for new blooms and new bushes.
Colored pencil on your wood?
Yeah. This is all colored pencil unless it's watercolor. This is my brother-in-law's gourd. And I dragged that. He gave it to me when we lived here in South Carolina. Then we moved to California and I took it out there, didn't know what to do with it, and brought it back from California. And then figured out how to draw on the gourd. I didn't do any prep on that gourd. Now some of the one that I'm passing around with eggs, I did use, it was a clear acrylic and gave it kind of a sandy feel or texture. And I really didn't like it. I prefer working on the raw wood. I think it lays down better. So these are just a few, we can just go through these quickly. These are all pencil. My husband loves pelicans, so I made him one for Christmas. These are just some examples of how versatile pencil can be. A friend of mine gave me this board, and so I made this little girl for her. And I also taught a board class, and I needed an example. This is my little Ella again. This is on ampersand pastel board. Ampersand pastel board takes watercolor beautifully. So the background and the rose and most of her shirt is watercolor with pencil enhancements to bring out the detail. And some of you may know Dr. Ryan. This was his. I was commissioned to do his retirement portrait, and it also is on ampersand pastel board. And what's nice about ampersand pastel board and the wood that is going around is you can seal it up, and you don't have to use a mat, and you just you have to use a fixative on it. I use Lesco fixative because some fixatives make pencils the pigments turn color or change colors, change values really. And then I put several coats of Kmart varnish over it, and then it looks like oil because you don't have to put glass over it. You can see, you're not distracted by the glass. This is Frederick's watercolor canvas. I love working on this. A lot of the dog was mostly black until I put pencil over it. The background is watercolor with pencil over it. The next one is also Frederick's watercolor canvas. The parrot is actually, and I'm going to demonstrate. I brought one of each of my pencils to demonstrate because otherwise we'd be here all night. I got this reference down in NASA, I think. Some of you may know Ann Cougar does colored pencil cruises and she teaches on the cruise and brings in a couple of artists to teach. So she teaches 3 days, and this was on one of her cruises that I got this reference photo. Now this is where I have fallen in love all over again with pencil. This is on film. This is on Duralar. Duralar is it's a polyester film and it's translucent. You can see through it. How many of you trace before you start to paint? Don't be afraid. I'm going to talk about it. How many of you think it's cheating to trace? Good, because I trace. And one of the reasons that I really like working on this is I can get amazing detail. This is on film. Yeah, this is on film. I'm not gonna guess
That's
that
the
one.
Durafilm as well.
This, I'm sorry.
What kind of film is that?
This is called graphics drafting film, and I've brought samples for anybody who wants them. There's a piece on the back of these. I have them up here on the table. Please feel free to grab one. Yeah. I've tried drawing on you, though. Can't do it. Yeah, it's too slick. There's two types of graphic drafting film. One is Duralar, and it's very smooth. And one of them is graphics drafting film. And the way you can tell them apart is if you drag your fingernail over the Duralar, it slides really easy. And when you drag your finger over the graphics drafting film, it feels almost like an emery board. I walked into Roy's shed one day and these were laying underneath this workbench. And I just had to draw them. I'm a bit of a carpenter myself, so I'm kind of into tools too. Most of these are inherited tools from his brother and his mother. There's actually the wrench that went to his mother's Model T. Wow, that's yeah. So I'm really proud of that one. I'm going to send these around so you can feel them. One's Duralar, one's graphics drafting film. Some artists work only on Duralar. Duralar is really a student grade. Yeah, it's considered a student grade film. And I started out with the leaves that we just had up here were on Duralar, and it worked really well. I used a heated board. Run the pencil together with heat, and I want to demonstrate that as long as we've got time.
Sorry, that's
sorry. You're all right. If I'm going to do water, maybe I'll use the Duralar. But there's been several pieces that I've started that on Duralar that I gave up on. This is one of them. I couldn't get the color intensity that I wanted, and I forgot to bring this one tonight. I was going to bring it. It's on my website. And I've got cards up here if y'all want to take a look at my website. The website is GretchenEvansParker.net. And I just updated all of it, spent all morning Friday updating, so you better go look at it. So I don't do it very often. But yeah, this was on Duralar, and I started it, and I decided I just wasn't going to be able to get enough layers. The graphics drafting film, you can get many more layers. And if you run out of tooth, you can turn it over. But I chose to put the red on the back because I wanted it to receive. Opposed to the other side, and I've got a picture in my presentation of a real obvious background that has aerial perspective in it. It was a rose that I did it for the silent auction for the Colored Pencil Society International show last spring, or last summer. And after I got it done, I looked at it, oh my gosh, this really is cool. So now I started working more and more on the back of the film for the aerial perspective. The one that I just, a lot of times, I'm gonna digress. A lot of times I don't even put a background in. I just leave it gray, and then when you mount it, put it on a piece of colored backing, white, gray, black, depending on what you're trying to achieve. In this latest one that I did, I went to my framer and got the color backing that I wanted it to be mounted on, so that I would be able to get my values right. And I actually brought that one with me. I can pass this one around too. So this is going to be mounted on gray. I've got it upside down, although it doesn't really make a lot of difference. This is 3 generations of watches for my family. And what prompted it was last summer, my brother died of mesothelioma that he acquired in the Navy in Vietnam. And he had several of these watches, and I brought them home and I thought, man, what can I do with these watches? So I started pulling out watches, and this is what I came up with.
Can you take it out? That doesn't do it justice.
Well, I'm going to pass it around.
Oh, okay.
And you can flip it over, and there's a story behind this fella too. You've seen the other one, I think, Lisa, him with the baby.
Yeah.
So I was in Walmart one day. So the guy on the back, I was in Walmart one day, standing in the pharmacy line. And I saw this guy with all these silver rings on him. In case you hadn't noticed, I love detail. And I thought, oh man, I would really love to take a picture of his hands, but I wonder what the heck he'd say to me. And he had long hair and a beard and tattoos. And, I stood there for about 5 minutes looking at him and thinking. And with that, his wife walked up with their little baby boy. He was maybe a month old. And I thought, what the heck? I was talking to her, and he was very kind and sweet. And I thought, maybe I am brave enough. So I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, I'm fascinated with your hands. Can I please take a picture? I'm a portrait artist and I would love to take a picture of your hands, and I'll give you a print if you'll let me take a picture. And gave him my business card. He emailed me that afternoon, and he was just so flattered that I asked him. And I showed his hands to our daughter Rachel, and she said, "Too bad you didn't get a picture of him with the baby." And I said, "Well, maybe they'll send me pictures of the baby." So he posed for me for that picture on the back, but the one of him with his baby is just the most adorable thing. This little bald-headed kid looking up at this dad with all these tattoos, and all of his tattoos are based on Romans 13:5. He's a retired police officer. And if you look at his back, you'll see the scar where he had to have back surgery. He was writing a citation that somebody ran him down, and he had to retire from the police department. He was 3rd generation police officer, and that was all he wanted to do. And it was a big heartbreak for him. We're going to be able to get the pictures back?
I'm trying.
What I can do is do some of the demonstrations, and then if we get to them, we can do that. So anyway, the saga is I'm fully into film now. I want to show you a few more of the ones that I've done. and explain the process. This is a reflection of a building in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They have a big show in Grand Rapids. It used to be every year, but now they're doing it like every other year. It's called Art Prize. And they have art all over the city. And I was there for Art Prize. I've not entered Art Prize, but this one will probably go in Art Prize. I used to go to the doctor in this antique building here. Now there's an Indian tribe that owns it. It was, the bottom part of it was built in the 1920s, and then they added the tower on top of it. And when I was a kid, they were doctor's offices and insurance offices and lawyers' offices, but now they're condominiums. So this is a reflection of McKay Tower in the PNC Bank building, and I'd always wanted to work on glass and do a glass building in the reflections. And so this one here, this is another one that got juried into the Explore This exhibition because I used it was to get the white, the really white whites, and the I'm not sure if you can see it or not. No, you can't. The sky is all on the back and it's pan pastel.
What?
Pan pastel. It's
Yeah.
it's well,
Pretty much a powder.
it's kind of a powder, but it's kind of like packed facial powder is what it is. It's the same consistency, only a little oilier, but it's great for adding backgrounds to your work. And this is on film too. And Rachel said I needed to have a person in it, so I put that man walking on the sidewalk. And put a lot of the highlights around the top of the building with the white pit pen. So I'm kind of convincing a lot of my students that they need to go to start working on film. And I've always loved realism. A lot of people don't understand why anybody would bother to create realism or hyperrealism, which is what my watches are. It's considered hyperrealism. But that's what feeds my soul when it comes to art. We all have to have our own little niche. But the nice part about film is, I was just telling Lisa, I'm working on a barn right now. It was in Michigan. And in Michigan, a lot of the foundations of barns are fieldstone. The farmers built the foundations with the stones to get them out of the field. They had to do something with them. So and actually, some of them actually built houses with fieldstone. There's one near my home place in Michigan that's all fieldstone. It's gorgeous. But the thing that I like about it is you can completely erase it. You can start back from the beginning, and the rock that I'm working on right now is just driving me nuts. And I'm really ready to erase that rock because it just isn't rocking for me at all. Here's another, this is my attempt at abstract. I call it tree rain because I took the picture on our dock right after it rained and the tree was dripping in the lake. That one's been published in one of Anne's books. This one here, and I'm going to demonstrate some of these techniques after I show all these to you. This one here also has been juried into the Color Pencil Society International Show. And to get the color really smooth, I used solvent to actually melt the wax on the pencil. Pencils are, they have different hardnesses by different brands. I use mostly Prismacolor, but I've since learned that luminance also will blend a lot like Prisma, in some cases even better than Prisma, especially when using heat. So this is another example of how you can make a pencil look like paint. And this is this was from my marble era. I'm past the marble era. I can't tell you how many times I've drawn these marbles. The one bowl that I've got of marbles has been featured in many paintings. This one I blended with heat before there was such a thing as an Icarus board like I brought tonight to show you. I used an embosser that scrapbook artists use. And if you could see the back of it, you'd see where I burned the paper with it. But it got carried into the international show, so it wasn't too bad. But that's another blending of pencil, and that one was done with heat. That one was done with a solvent called Goo-Gone. Most mothers know what Goo-Gone is. It's great for getting crayon off of things. There's another product that you can pay 3 times as much, smells exactly like Goo-Gone. It's called Zest It, that I don't use because you can get Goo-Gone at the hardware store.
So you put your pencil on there and then you cover it with Goo-Gone?
You can do that. I'm going to show you tonight how that works.
You had it on here there.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. You don't want this one. This is a gel. This is the one that you can use. It's a liquid. It's more of a liquid. And it's amazing what it does. There's just a few more pictures in that group that we really need to look at. Let's see.
I got them here. What do you?
You got 'em?
I don't know how to get.
Okay, that one, that's the rose that I did the leaves on the back. And you can see how those leaves really recede away from that rose. So let's see. I think we've hit most of the, let's go to Metro Air. If we go to Metro Air and the one just before that.
Okay. Metro Air.
I don't think, did we get to the? There
There.
it is.
That thing, it's not even on here. I don't know how to get that off of there. I'm not having much luck.
That's okay. That one, my daughter was very upset about this one. I entered that one in the international show 3 times before it got in. And you're allowed to enter 3 times. If you've made it to 3 and been turned down 3 times, you can't get in. Finally made it on the 3rd time and got 2nd place. So you don't ever give up when it comes to, a judge has one opinion, the next judge is going to have a different opinion. I'm never offended when I'm turned down. I've been entering these shows for over 20 years and I've only been turned down 3 times, and that's one of them. And we were in the Atlanta airport getting ready to fly to California, and my husband poked me. He said, "Look over there." And I said, "Oh yeah." So I kind of surreptitiously took pictures and hoped they didn't look up and notice that I was taking pictures of them, and prayed that they never recognized themselves in my painting. Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one. Yeah. I wish I'd have brought a picture of the
This.
setup for this one. So I've got red and white swirly lamps over my kitchen sink. And I have a big leaded crystal bowl. It's heavier than. So I had a bar stool, and I put that on my counter, and then I put pots and pans high enough so that I could set the bowl in front of the lamps, and got that reference photo. That one won 2nd place in the international show too. And that one was a really fun one to do. And I actually, so this is my book on film. This is available either on Amazon or on Ann Kuhlberg's site. Her website is annkuhlberg.com. If you're you want to get all the lowdown on colored pencil, just type in her name, Ann Cooper. If you typed in colored pencil artist, she'd probably come up. But what I did when I wrote the book was I compared Duralar to, this was just kind of a takeoff of that one there. Compared Duralar to the graphics drafting film and found that I could get the same effect. It was more work on the Duralar because I had to work on the front and the back. Whereas with the drafting film, I only needed to work on the front because I could get so many more layers in it. But this book came out 6 years ago when everybody was just learning about film. And this is supposed to be the complete guide to working on drafting film. I'm here to tell you I've learned a bunch more since this book came out. So it's kind of embarrassing. I need to
Did you want to look at these?
updated edition. This is good. This
So
one
the
here,
the previous one, how many layers did you do? That one, yeah.
that
How
one,
many layers, yeah.
oh, 20. I start really light and then work up to a burnishing pressure. To bring up the value in colored pencil, you use pressure for any one color. So you start out with what I call a whisper stroke and work up to a number 5, which is the hardest pressure that you can put on the tip of a pencil without breaking it. And so a lot of this is actually burnished after I've brought the value up. So there's probably 20 layers there. Okay, this one, and I'm going to demonstrate this tonight too. We all have done this in grade school. I got this tablecloth for when we got married. This is a wedding gift. And this is the planter that my grandmother gave me when I was 10 years old when I had scarlet fever and she thought I was going to die. And this kitty was a Christmas present to our daughter Rachel because she loves stuff like this. This was a gift from some friends, family friends that we've had for a bazillion years. And this one was a gift from a dear friend.
I don't know what it is.
So there's a story here. But this, the tablecloth, I laid the tablecloth under the film and used the side of my pencil. It's called frottage. Who knew it had a name? We used to do it in grade school on the sidewalk, go outside with the crayon or a leaf. So I use frottage a lot in my work, and I'll show you how easy it is to do on film. So some of the detail is on the front of the film, and some of it's on the back. Okay, let's go to it. Okay, this shows my compulsivity. Each one of those leaves is pencil and individual. And it's called insanity.
Yes.
It's also called
Yes.
COVID isolation. I did a lot of isolating things when we were staying home during COVID, and this is one of them. This was parked out behind my parents' house in Michigan. It was the neighborhood snowplow. You notice there's chains on the tires. And he had his handy dandy flashing light on the top of it. This guy just really was into his snowplowing.
We already talked
And
about
we've
that
seen
one.
this one.
And that one.
Let's see what else have we got. We've seen the tools. Oh, yes. Okay. This one, I'm proud of this one. Because how many of you know who Chuck Close is? He's so cool. He does humongous portraits, like 5 by 5. He's wheelchair, well, he died last year. He was wheelchair bound, and I'm sure an occupational therapist set up his studio so he could continue to work. He was a quadriplegic. He had a blood clot in his spine.
Ooh.
Yeah. And he's a portrait artist. Look him up. It's fascinating. And each of his portraits, they're 5 by 5, but each portrait is done with little squares. And if you look closely enough, you can see all these little squares. So I named this Close Encounter. And the reason I did was to pay homage to Chuck Close. But it almost didn't get juried into the show because it's based on Chuck Close's work. And if I hadn't paid homage to Close, they would not have let it in. And they've since changed the rules that if you copy a style of another artist, you've got to include that somehow and pay respects to that artist. But it's also based on Norman Rockwell, because I'm sure a lot of you have seen that self-portrait that he did, looking around the canvas. So, and somebody, well, I had it on Facebook, and somebody said, "What's that horn?" I said, "That's my pencil. I'm a colored pencil artist." So anyway, I'm really proud of that, because I was juried into the show, even though they didn't like what I did necessarily, and they didn't have a rule for it, but they do now. And that's my mom. This was a snapshot from when she lived in Grand Rapids, and back then in the 20s, and probably in the 30s too, they had roaming photographers. And I understand, I've since heard that they did it here too. And this, I wish you could see the goat. They just walked up and down the street and offered to take pictures of the kids in his little cart. And it was just a little buckboard, and he put a purse in her hand, and she's supposed to be steering the goat, and she's sitting there looking like, what the? She was extremely shy, but I just had to finally do that snapshot. It just haunted me for years. This one is from Swansea. It's a building that was falling down, and I just love the shadows. And this is another COVID project. It took about 4 months, and my husband loves to challenge anyone to find a mistake in it. He's a character, what can I say? But anyway, I had a really good time with that one. So artwork is my sanity, especially when you have to stay inside for months.
Already talked about
We've
that one.
seen that one. Okay, let's go to the kiss. This couple just got married last year, and the groom had a golden retriever when he was a little boy, and he wanted me to draw a picture of it. And I happen to have a golden retriever in my repertoire already, so I gave it to him. And he wanted to pay me for it. And I said, "No, you just put some money in the offering plate on Sunday, and that'll be just fine." So he asked me to do their engagement picture, and I talked him out of it so that I could do his wedding picture for him this past year. So that's a real sweet love story. He was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 20, and she lived across the street, across the hall or nearby, and his girlfriend broke up with him. She was in nursing school, and befriended him and helped him kind of get on board with taking care of his diabetes, and they fell in love. There you go. So yeah, he has a special place in my heart. And this one, this is interesting. And some artists are doing this. I'm not sure that mine was put together right. I don't like the way it looks when it was framed. So I think I didn't bring it tonight for that reason. It's actually got 2 layers of film. The film on the back has this color on it, and the film on the bottom has this color, and on the top it has blue. And then I put the detail all on the top of the film. And this was in Edisto on the beach last spring when we were walking. But the reason I threw that in was because I wanted you to see how you can actually create even more 3D effects. Some people use even 3 layers of film. And that's the one I just finished. I haven't framed it yet.
You had that one.
Yeah, I had that one. I had that one. And this is Ann Kuhlberg's website. A couple of the books that I've contributed to. This is the one I wrote, and I contributed to that one. And I've also got several lessons that I wrote. I just brought them along so that you can see. There's quite a bit of, there's all kinds of opportunities to learn colored pencil on her website. And I always give her a shameless plug because, well, Jean knows her. Jean sails with her. She's just an amazing person. I toured Japan with her 10 years ago this month, actually. She was born in Japan to a Methodist minister, missionaries. And she had a Japanese nurse for 7 years, so she speaks fluent Japanese. A blue-eyed blonde who speaks fluent Japanese with no accent is quite an allure. And you've experienced it. It's really, you didn't make, did you ever make that trip?
No, she
That got
we was
canceled
supposed
for
to go,
COVID.
but They canceled.
Yes, yes. She's there right now.
She is a character.
She is a character.
We talked
She
to
loves everybody. So anyway, what time is it now? 7? I've got a few minutes. I want to do some demonstrations of the things that I've talked about.
Did your baskets are on here? Did you want to look at those?
Let's do this.
Okay.
If you want to see my baskets, you can just scroll through them real quick. If you want to see more of my baskets, just go to my website.
Okay, that was it.
Is that it?
Yep.
Oh, there's more somewhere. That's okay.
That was,
Oh, you're right, that is it. Go back to just put my Gmail up there. This is another basket that I thought was really neat. This was for her brother. These lighter pine needles were on her father's
oops.
that's all right, that's all right. They were on her father's casket 15 years ago, and I thought, man, she wanted me to make a basket, and there wasn't enough, so I just added them at the end. But the antler was from a hunting trip that her brother took, and I was shocked the pine needles actually were still okay after 15 years. Anyway, I make a lot of baskets. I think I'm up to 72 right now.
Oh, wow.
That's after I've been at the drawing board all day, I go to the basket. So if you want to email me, it's a number 1. It's not an L upside down. And this is my website. And, if you've got any questions or you're interested in taking a class, drop me an email. I'll put you on my mailing list. So with that, do we have a camera that we can show the demonstration? Okay.
Yep.
Oh, here's another surface that I wanted to tell you about. UArt makes a sanded paper that it comes in different grits. This one feels like 800, but it's a fun material to work on too. Now this has to be framed under glass, unlike the ampersand. The ampersand, you can varnish after you've fixed it. So I want to show you a quick demonstration of frottage. Oh, thank you. Maybe right here. We can move it too. You can do this on paper too. The apples were to do the formica. I used sandpaper. This is just out of my wood shop, 60 grit, and I was able to replicate the formica that the apples were sitting on. And this
Yeah, hold on.
is going to show up. This is doily. Sandpaper. I didn't bring my rocks. I've got one that picture that I did of rocks. And to get the texture on the rocks, I went out in the garden, got my rocks, and just did a little frottage, and then added the detail on the other side. So you've got 2 sides that you can work on. I don't know how well you can see this. When I work on film, I always put registration marks, and I learned about registration marks when I was in college. working in a silk screening shop in downtown Grand Rapids in 80-degree weather on the second floor next to an open oven that was boiling, baking sweatshirts at 350 degrees. It was not fun. But anyway, I put X's on each of the corners. And then when I need to check a registration, they're called registration marks. And I also know which is the front and which is the back of the film because it's so easy to get it mixed up. Then I can realign my work by those X's and get it right back where it needs to be so that I can continue on. Another beauty of film, and the way I actually started working on film, I used it to make my line drawings. When I started out as a portrait artist, I've kind of expanded. My goal and my dream all my life is to be a portrait artist, a children's portrait artist. And I had a heck of a time getting features just the way I wanted them until we started discovering Duralar. And if you put your line drawing on Duralar and then trace it from the Duralar, as you're working, you can lay your line drawing on your work and make sure that your eyes aren't cattywampus or your nose, you've got a nostril that's out of shape or an ear that's not big enough. And you just keep laying that back over your work. And by putting those registration marks on it, it's really easy to get them lined back up. I use a light box. I work on a light box a lot for that very reason, so that I can check to make sure that I've got everything just right. And that's what I did with the watches that I sent around. I kept putting it back over, my drawing back over to make sure that I had it right. Now this right here is called an Icarus board. Turn this off, I don't need it. This is new, I'm not used to it yet. It has a cool side and it has a warm side. And it was invented by Esther Roy and her husband. I can't remember his name. I think it was Tony. They're from Italy. I want to show you how different pencils melt. She gave a class in San Clara, California. Just happened to be where my children live, so I was able to go. And no, I can't find it. Here it is. So this is how you melt your wax. So I'm gonna lay it down here. Just some color. You have to get a pretty good amount of color on the film before you blend it. This is really great for making shiny things. I love chrome and water. So after you get a good wash of color on, you put it over on the hot side and blend it. And
So
all
this
your
is
pencil
on
marks
the
are
screen
gone.
up here
Oh, it
as,
is?
as well as on Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's how I got these red squares as smooth as I did by heating them. Now you can do the same thing. You can do the same thing on paper. This is a little nuts. No. This is watercolor pencil. I'm going to digress a little bit. This is watercolor pencil. And you can use it wet or dry. This is a watercolor pen. And that's on paper. You can't do this on film. And that's how I got the parrot's feathers so bright. I think I've got an Inktense pencil in here. Inktense pencils are just so much fun.
What is it again?
Inktense, Derwent Inktense. Here. These, the colors and ink, they've since I bought this set, they've since brought out an even larger set of pencil. They want an arm and a leg form. I just looked it up. But the colors from these Inktense pencils, this is how I got the really bright color. Look at that red. I just love it.
That's your watercolor pen thing that you're using?
This is a watercolor. Yeah, it's got water in it. And let's see. Oh, I wanted to show you the Goo-Gone. I'm gonna go back to Prismacolor again. Let me show you one other thing while I'm doing this. This is a good way to get hair and grass. This is an embosser. Watch what happens when I color over it. And then if you want to add detail, you can go back in along the edge of it. This is great for grass, especially. I'm going to blend it with Goo-Gone. This is just a regular old cheapy watercolor brush. I want to stay off from that impressed line, but if you wanted to have some color in your impressed line, say for instance here or here, you could impress the line. I don't know. Yeah, it's right. You can impress the line. And then go over it with a darker color. And now you've got red impressed lines. That's done on paper, not on film. If you want to have a similar effect of impressed lines, I'll put the top on this before I dump it. Are any of you familiar with the slice knife? A lot of colored pencil artists use these. It's called a slice. It's a ceramic knife. And you can find them by looking for slice on the internet. You can get impress line with this, and this is a good way to get whiskers on animals. Let's see. Wisps of grass, wisps of hair. It actually takes a layer off. Now, one of the things that I didn't mention is graphics drafting film comes in two weights, 0.003, which is quite flimsy, but great for frottage, or what I passed around was 0.005, which I prefer because you can crimp it and it'd be really sad if you can't hide the crimp. The ceramic tea party with the flower pot that my grandmother gave me in the yellow teapot, I actually crimped it right in the background where I didn't have any color and I had no way of hiding it. I was able to blend enough pencil in to make it passable, but I was just sick because I had just finished the whole thing and I crimped it. Another wonderful thing, this is probably not the kind of Mr. Clean Magic Eraser you're familiar with. They make a book of them now. My daughter uses these in some of her watercolor. I use it a lot to clean up my film. It works great to clean up And if you need just a small area cleaned up, I went on eBay and got myself some forceps. They sent me 6 of them. I don't need 6, but I've since found out that they're kind of handy to have in the kitchen too, you know, those little seals that they have on aspirin bottles and you can't get a hold of the silly things. Get a set of forceps. This is what I use when I'm trying to erase a small area. Let me erase my test area here. So I've been using this a lot on my rock that is fighting with me. If it fights me too much longer, I'm going to erase the whole thing. So you can get smaller areas with it. If you're not familiar with Tombow mono erasers and you do fine work, you need to get familiar with Tombow erasers. Comes in a little tiny round one. And did I bring my flat one? I did. Or a flat one. And these things are just the berries because you can erase and they last forever. The only problem is they do leave little gumbies. If they do leave gumbies, you just clean the tip of your eraser off and pick it up again. What my students will tell you is when I'm cleaning my tips, I usually just do this. Because my armpit is always with me. So let me see if there's anything else I wanted to talk about. Oh, yeah, we can pass this around. I brought the originals from my book. I thought you might enjoy. Let me turn this up. Oh, another thing I wanted to tell you. If you're into colored pencil or you want to experiment with colored pencil, you don't have to spend a lot of money on equipment. Master's Touch pencils at Hobby Lobby are fairly reasonable. Dick Blick has their own brand of colored pencils that are really quite nice and professional quality. And if you want a heated board, you can use a hair blower. I don't recommend an embosser. It might start a fire. But you can use a hair blower in a small area and tortillas or paper stumps. And if you don't want to buy paper stumps and spend all that money on these little pieces of paper, go on YouTube, look up paper stumps. These started in prison. Prisoners used newspaper to make their paper stumps. I went to Alcatraz when I was in California not too long ago. And that's how a lot of prisoners pass time. They're allowed pencils and paper and newspapers. And so they just tore up their newspapers and made tortillas. It's really easy. And they want an arm and a leg for them in an art store. It takes a little practice. But anyway, you can make your own. It's roll your own. I don't know anything about that. Oh, I was going to pass this around. So this is all the artwork from my book. I'm going to pass around the sanded paper too. These are all the originals from my book. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Anything I didn't cover? I know I covered a lot of ground tonight.
What photo editing software do you use?
I use Photoshop Elements.
Photoshop Elements.
It has everything in it that I need. Rachel uses the big Photoshop, but I haven't found anything in Elements that is lacking. And each year they upgraded. I think I'm up to 15. I started at 8. I recommend when you get one, just stick with it because every time they change things, then you can't find anything. And that's a good question because I work big. I worked pretty big sometimes. Well, like the watches that wouldn't fit on my scanner. All of those are scanned on my scanner. But I scan my big pieces in sections. And then in Photoshop Elements, they have this thing called Photo Merge. And it's so cool because it will automatically knit everything back together and you have your print 3 300 DPI, printable quality, saleable quality. It's the best part of Photoshop Elements as far as I'm concerned. It's a really super program. Anybody else? Well, thank you all so much for having me tonight. I really enjoyed it. Go on for the rest of the evening, because I can talk more.
Thank you, Gretchen, for a wonderful presentation.
Very.
You gonna drop them over?
Gretchen, we asked that you, we have listed names here, we just the door prizes. And we're going to do 5 door prizes. And we have 1 through 43, so we want you to pick 5 numbers. One at a time.
Okay, my granddaughter is 17.
17, Karen Larrabee. Okay, another number.
Ella's gonna be 14.
14. Carol Blackwood.
And we'll have 3 more.
Oh, I'm getting there. My grandson just turned 7.
7, Don Bishop.
Okay, Roy's birthday was the 29th of March.
29. Ruth Collier.
And we have 1 more. This is a donation from City Art.
Okay.
My birthday's August 30.
Cathy Schwalm.
That's all.
And we thank you very much for your time, Gretchen. This has been a wonderful presentation. I'm sure everybody learned something tonight.
I have one more thing to say, I forgot.
Oh, one more.
Look, best pencil sharpener, it's called a J-Car pencil sharpener. I love this. You can get all kinds of different tips on your pencils just by adjusting it to the back. What's the name of that?
J-Car.
J-A-K-A-R.
J-A-K-A-R. And it gives you different size points
Yeah,
by making adjustments.
it's a super sharpener.
High schools don't need that. Okay, just a quick reminder to have a safe trip home. And you do have to pre-register for our May show. Well, ordinarily we just bring it, but now you have to register it online. So please make sure you register for the May show. Light it up. No cost, it's free. What's the ending to be able to register it for you? Not the day of though, because if you're gonna do anything, no. I mean, we're going to meet on the 15th, so why don't we say by that Friday before? Because that will give her time to get all the little stuff done. Of course, I'm stressing her weekend though, aren't I?
We can make a date. The original did not have a date.
The original does not have a date, but I mean, you bring your own easel and everything, but we need it registered. We need the name. You don't need pictures of it, just the name and
The name, medium.
name, medium.
It's in the prospectus.
It's at a picture, excuse me. Yes,
Does it hang? How long does it hang?
all summer. It stays, I mean, when you bring it on the 17th, it doesn't go home until September.
But
But
we did But we did say, if you have a piece that you hang in there and somebody wants to buy it, you can replace it with a comparable piece over the course of the summer.
I say, if you sell it, you can replace it with a comparable piece.
Can you put a not for sale item?
Yes, you may use not for sale.
Are these just the winners?
No, and that, no. On the May show, everything remains. Now, we've had a couple sneak out in the past, but we don't want them to sneak out. And it's because somebody didn't know. I mean, so that's why we're emphasizing that what you bring to the May show, light it up, will be hanging in the tap gallery from May 17th until September's meeting, which will be our first meeting of the new year.
So light it up as the theme.
Light it up as the theme. Yes,
One
Lane.
more question that I just had asked, the tap gallery, if you don't know what that is, it's the front gallery to the park, where our
And TAP stands for the artist's place. And it hangs on both sides. It's tap gallery, both sides up front when you come in. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is there a certain fee for people who are paying?
For that one is the light it up. That show, light it up. Light it up. Yes,
I'm sorry, I was talking
you're fine.
earlier, but, so we just bring it in on May 15th?
Yes.
You don't have to bring it in beforehand.
No, you just need to register it online. You do not bring it in ahead of time. You just register it online. And on the 15th, you come in, you set up your easel and put your picture on it.
Not
Yep.
a tabletop, but,
And if you have a tabletop, we do have tables we can put them on. But it needs to be able to hang in the tap gallery, which means you have to have the wire. Please make sure you use the wire hanging system on the back. Anything else? Yes.
The pictures that are out there right now, the awards, speeches, all the latter, take those home yet, or do they stay?
we would like the first, second, and third place winners, best in show, to stay for another month. And those of you who also got other awards, if you want to keep yours out there for another month, you can. We'll rearrange those to make it look right. But we definitely want first, second, and third place winners from each category. Keep their work out.
The further question was, how long is the show winner going to be hanging? We're going to leave the show winners hanging until the 15th of May. And if somebody needs to take theirs, then we'll rearrange and make sure it looks good. So that's it. Anything else? Okay, those who volunteered, don't forget to be there at 9:30 on the 29th. And those who brought food, make sure you get your things. Don't leave us all the leftovers, please. I'm big enough. Anyway, have a safe trip home. And at this point, I'm adjourning the meeting of the Crooked Creek Art League. Okay. It's yours too.
Yes.
Wait.
I don't know.